Hello and welcome to Fathoms Deep, a Black Sails podcast. From Common Room Radio, I'm Liz Stevens.
And I'm Daphne Olive. And we are at episode 32.
32, gosh.
Yes, every episode I'm so excited about. Every episode I'm a little sad because we're closer to the end.
It's true, and you can definitely feel that coming. There's a lot of momentum this season.
Yes, there is a lot of momentum this season.
Although I felt with this episode, this was the first episode that really felt a little more interstitial, I suppose. It was more of a connecting thread than most of our other episodes, which have stood alone so beautifully and have been like little films of their own right. I feel like this one didn't stand alone quite so well as some of our previous episodes have, whereas really all of our previous episodes have, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, I can definitely see what you're saying. I feel like, yeah, I guess I just didn't think about that because I like a lot of what's happening. But I do feel like this was like the first 3 episodes, we just had like a lot of shit happen.
Yeah,
and this one's actually more about relationships and stuff that is like connecting emotional threads that we had all through, actually, honestly, the first 3 seasons and the beginning of this season, like not just.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was really satisfying for me. I feel like there was some stuff that happened that felt like, things I needed to know, conversations I needed to see have.
Sure, of course. Yeah, or conversations that were a long time coming.
Yeah, well, yes, that for sure. Okay, so, I don't think I have that much to talk about in the beginning. We did have, everyone can find this, we had a lovely special episode with our friend Alistair Stevens.
We did,
where we talked about everything actually up until the last episode with him. So that was super fun, and we adore him. He's from Story Wonk, and he does amazing podcasts as well. So go find that.
Yes, find Story Wonk, follow, subscribe.
And now we can start with this episode. Okay, so there are a lot of parts to this episode, so it didn't quite have as simple a breakdown as we often do. I actually wanted to start with the 2 parts of this episode that have to do with the enslaved people on New Providence Island as our first part. And then I wanted to cover the Jack and Anne part. And then I had a little bit of a hard time, but I think I settled with, let's talk about Max and Eleanor.
Yes.
And then the Pirate Rebellion, and then as our last bit, talk about the meeting between Eleanor and Silver and Flint.
Sure. Okay, that sounds great.
That's what I thought we'll do. Alrighty. So let's get started. Oh, I did have one other thing. I just wanted quickly to call out to our dear cabin boy.
To Andrew Dice.
Yes. Andrew Dice. Always fascinating.
What was his actual pirate name? I don't remember. He got a name at some point.
Right. Andrew has an actual pirate name that's not Cabin Boy.
No, I don't remember now. Oh, well.
Oh, well. That's okay. Before we start, and this doesn't specifically so much relate to this episode, but it relates to Black Sails in general. I've been listening lately to a different podcast called Feeling Film, where our dear cabin boy has guested twice. I really like them, by the way. Anyone who enjoys Fathoms Deep, I would say Feeling Film is a really great podcast to check out. I think they have a very complimentary way of looking at talking about stories and pop culture. So Andrew, when they had an episode about criticism. And Andrew said the thing that for me clarified why I love Flint and why I possibly love tragic heroes. He said, the story of the guy who loses everything but his willpower is a story of hope.
That's very good. Yeah, I like that.
Isn't that great?
Well, and you've always said that ultimately Black Sails is an optimistic story.
Season 4 may break me
Season
of
4
that.
is getting pretty heavy and dark, I feel like. Yes.
Yeah, season 4 definitely may break me of that.
Right?
But but I do love that the idea that a story doesn't have to be like just happy. And I think what he contrasted that with to escapism. Like a story doesn't have to be escapist to be hopeful. And even a story,
of course,
even a story that, and this is the thing I always say, is like even a story that seems dark, if you have that one spark of the power of human spirit inside of that darkness,
sure.
In my eyes, that's still a story of hope.
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt like when I heard Andrew say that, I was like, oh my God, now I understand. I understand why I love these characters.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that with everyone because chances are, if you love this show, it might resonate with you too. All right. Now let's get into our characters.
Okay, let's get into it.
Prepare to board. Aye.
We start this episode off really rough, I've got to say.
We do, really rough. I am not thrilled with the turn to the super dark graphic violence that's happening on this show.
Yeah, that might
I
be a thing.
Understand it's our final season. We're upping the ante and we're showing the descent into madness. I get all of that. I just feel like I don't need to quite see it for so long.
Yep. You're gonna. Yes, this is also.
Yeah.
This is also an episode like that. We didn't have that in the first episode. We had like battle and ships, and you love that stuff.
Battle scene is different from these sorts of...
Battle scenes make you happy. Well,
yes,
okay,
me
not
personally.
happy because the ships were in pain. But yes, I agree with you. The battle scenes are a little easier on me, and these very brutal personal violence scenes are harder.
Right, personal violence.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, we will get into the whole thing with our Ranger crew, if we still call them the Ranger crew, with Jack and Anne. Mm-hmm. And now, yes, we have the whipping at the very beginning of this episode, which is really rough with the burning switch. Is that what we would call?
Yes, I guess so. Yeah, it's like a branch. It's awful.
Yeah, it's awful. And again, it is important for us to understand. I mean, this was totally a part of the culture of slavery. Also, this is the repercussions of the choices that Billy Bones made. And so it's important for us to understand that, like really understand it.
Right.
The part that's interesting to me is that they stop when they get a message that Nassau has fallen.
Right. Yes. Which did kind of put an eerie cast on everything. Nassau's fallen.
Right. But it's also exactly what this was Flint's argument, that we need to take Nassau first. And
that is true.
That would change everything in the interior, that we can't just take each, considering the devious plot of the plantation holders. He said we can't just take one estate after another because of these repercussions. If we took Nassau, that would be a signal. Right.
And didn't he turn out to be right?
Yes, he did turn out to be very.
They pulled that out on us, and we don't learn it till later. But yes.
But still, I mean, that is, again, that's part of why I grouped those two parts that have to do with the enslaved people together, because I think they are telling a kind of mini story within the story. Is that now we know now that Flint and Maddie were right.
Yes.
And then in the second part, where we see Maddie go to the Underhill estate, she sees that some of the people were still in chains, and then she hears from Ruth. I like that we got Ruth back, I've got to say. I was happy to see Ruth. So Ruth tells the story of that Julius, who we saw in the first part, actually is now leading an army of formerly enslaved people in the interior who have the same anger towards the pirates as they do towards the English.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Which it's hard when you're breaking up the episodes so much to talk about, but I feel like, to me, as I was watching the episode, that felt almost like an overcomplication. to now be split into three factions. I mean, there's a lot going on in this episode. So many things that are kind of thrown at us that put me back in mind of the shifting sands of Nassau.
Right.
How every time you think that you have found your footing, it starts to slip beneath you and things start to change.
There's a lot of shifting sands in this episode, that's for sure.
There are a lot of shifting sands in this episode. It's so true.
And a lot of implications, right, of formerly shifting sands. I don't know. I guess I just trust them. Like when they throw a new element in, I just kind of trust them that they're going to figure out where to put that into the puzzle.
And how to fit it.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
You're right. It probably, yes.
Because we could have felt that way about the Maroon camp when we first arrived there. Like, seriously, a whole new place? And yet it ended up being so integral.
We loved Maddie and the Queen so quickly. Yes.
That's true. But again, back then, I was watching week to week. You binged that part the first time you watched it.
I did. It's true.
I don't remember how I felt, but I might have had a sense of like, really? This isn't actually our story. And yet,
interesting.
Now it's impossible to imagine the story without that being integral. So, I said it last week. I'm just here for the ride. I trust them so much at this point. I'm good. We'll figure out how this fits in. I mean, it definitely fits in as far as the whole Flint and Billy. And I feel like this episode in a large part is really about who we think is right. I mean, do we think Flint is right or do we think Billy is right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Ruth made a point of, Maddie's like, well, we tried to stop the repercussions. And Ruth's like, yeah, but they know that you're not in control of these men.
Yes.
And Maddie's like, well, then we'll get control. But it's like, it's not actually, you're
not so easy.
It's not so easy. Like, this is not your camp. Your mother isn't the queen.
Yes.
You aren't the princess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these people didn't spend their whole lives following your family.
That's so true.
Right? So it's really interesting. And then Ruth says, and I think this is, the most important for the themes of this episode part is that she says, when you wage war on the world fights back. And then she says, your mother, she knew.
Yes, your mother understood that. Yeah. And of course, this is one of the reasons that we liked Maddie so well is because she didn't hold to that same style of leadership that her mother did of hiding and secreting everyone away and making her word law.
And saving who you can.
She did save them. She did save who she could. And Maddie is leading a lot of men to their deaths, and she knows it, and she's seen it firsthand now in a way that I think she had not anticipated. But she is more like Flint and Silver. She has that bigger goal now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But yeah, so I really think that there's just this beautiful tension in this whole episode between this grand war against the world versus the idea of build a wall and save who you can. That's going to be the thing that throughout this episode is kind of interwoven in each character interactions.
Right.
All right. Let's move on to Jack and Anne. Let's pull off let's pull off that Band-Aid.
Right. I guess so. Well, first of all, I loved that as soon as whoever the British soldier said, "You're the captain now, the teach is dead." Mm-hmm. Yes. That he said, yes, just immediately with no hesitation. That there was, I like seeing Jack step up to the plate. It reminds me of the first time, I think it was on the Maroon camp, when they asked who quartermaster was. And there was that slight hesitation when Silver's like, I
think it's me.
Right. But there was no hesitation for Jack whatsoever.
Yes. No, that's true. Yeah, Jack doesn't get to do a whole lot in this episode, but he was
really quite passive in this episode. And of course he was put into a difficult position. I don't know how I felt about Jack in this episode.
Oh, see, I mean,
since he's struck the colors, I don't know what to think of him.
What would you have wanted him to do? I mean, he wants to save Anne. That's the thing, is he wants to protect Anne.
And I was frustrated by that little bit of storytelling too. I mean, it's so easy to put Anne in the middle like that, and it backs Jack into a corner so much that we know that there's not really a conflict there, because there is no conflict when it comes to saving Anne. There is only saving Anne. Does that make sense? Like, there's no hesitation for Jack.
Right, but then she teaches him not to do that. I mean, that's what's interesting.
Right, but even that was his honoring her. That wasn't his decision. It's not like he came up with, it's not like he thought, Anne could really handle herself in this situation and possibly save us all. I'll send her out there. she had to turn his mind, and it was.
Oh, I actually love that. I love it very much. Let me say why I love it, maybe, or you want to keep
sure. No, and I loved it too. I just don't think that we can credit Jack with it. We have to credit Anne with it.
Well, I mean, again, with this whole twins concept, like, remember what Toby said. Remember what Toby said about 310, where like suddenly Anne's being very emotional and she's the one that says, see you on the other side. And Jack's the one who says always, like that they actually kind of trade off who needs to be the strong one in a moment and who needs to be taken care of. Like, this is something they do. They switch off who's the caretaker and who's the cared for.
I do like that, actually. Mm-hmm.
Last episode was a scene where Jack's whole motivation was based on taking care of Anne. And, he made decisions that a lot of people, possibly even Teach, would argue with because of his need to take care of Anne. And now we get the flip side. Like, he's in a bind. He can't choose Anne. He can't bring himself
of course,
to do this thing. And he watches the strongest men of his crew killed for it until she says, and I love this, she says, you have to trust me.
Yeah. And that is what changed his mind, is that he does trust Anne. And also,
and it's not easy for him.
He wants her. No, it's not easy for him. But I think that he wants to honor her with that trust, too.
Exactly.
So, and their relationship would suffer very much if he didn't give her that trust, even in those hard situations where he didn't see the out that she saw.
Well, and it is the right thing to do, both because she's, such a badass fighter, but also because she understood that she was going to be underestimated.
Right. That is very true.
She's a skinny lady.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it was so cool to see them start with when Jack says, almost without hesitation again, or it starts with your partner here, the guy says. And so he says, Mr. Carver, without almost even thinking. And I was ready to get this look of absolute betrayal from whatever pirate he picked. But that guy was just like, yeah, because obviously I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest, and I stand a chance against this guy, which was really cool to see, actually. I would have liked to have met Mr. Carver on another occasion, perhaps. But then things just got so violent from there.
They did. It's a very disturbing fight.
Everything that happens in that hold is disturbing.
It's very close in. You really feel every blow, everything. It's brutal. Again.
And that frigging, the giant.
Yeah.
What were you doing? A sledgehammer, I guess?
Yep. No, again, I think this is important. I think this is we're really, really playing this whole thing of who is civilized and who is, who is good and who is bad. It's just, again, these are vicious pirates. Like the Ranger crew, we know Teach's, it's not the Ranger crew. Teach's guys are like, they're no joke.
Right, for sure.
And yet the thing was that the redcoats here are doing this for the fun of it, right? They're doing it because they felt they were owed this violence.
Yeah.
And they were doing it for self-satisfaction. They weren't doing this, they're in chains. They weren't doing this to like actually win any war. Like, these are people that they were bringing to go be hanged. They're not, there's no purpose for this other than getting out the feeling that they were supposed to.
That revenge feeling, yes.
Yeah, again, we're back to that revenge. We do have still traces of that theme from the last episode where, where these strong feelings of revenge really kind of mangle your soul.
The scene where first Milton and then Jack just bludgeoned in someone's head with that sledgehammer was not unlike Silver stomping in the bar. And, Silver's our guy. That's supposed to be...
I think Silver did it
I guess.
Well, again, except that he talked about the darkness right after. I think Silver did it in a very different way. I think when Jack is because it
was part of the storytelling, you mean?
Right. Exactly. It was that was pirate theater. So I think that the big difference here is that when Silver did it, that wasn't part of his plan, but it ended up being part of the pirate theater. And he definitely recognized that was a moment of darkness. With Jack, this is just a visceral, like, you beat up my girlfriend and I love her and I'm going to kill you now.
Sure. Yeah.
And actually, I don't know. Part of me was just like, I don't know. It's nice to see Jack. I mean, not nice. It's not nice to see anyone do that, but it is satisfying to see Jack.
Sure.
Not just be the cerebral guy. Like when he has those moments, I'm kind of psyched for him to like be a little piratey.
Right. Yeah, I guess I mostly meant that Milton, when Milton first started it, that it was supposed to show just how cruel Britain is.
Yeah. Well, again, is this Britain? Are these guys Britain? I mean, that's the fascinating.
I don't know. I was going to say, are they really?
Right.
Yeah. This really is a strange, like, special ops version.
Well, but I love that. I love that we have, I mean, I think this really suits my view now that we know more about Woodes Rogers. This really suits, the mood of Woodes Rogers, is that in season 3, we were fascinated with his civilized side and his pirate side. And now we're realizing that really it's kind of like a third way. Like the thing that he has is actually possibly worse than both. Like, and maybe I still haven't come to a conclusion about where I think Woodes Rogers' terrifying self fits in all of these different things. And I think that, that's going to be a process, learning where he fits in all of this.
We really didn't see very much of him in this episode. I was expecting so much more Woodes Rogers.
Nope, we didn't. I find it fascinating that we'll learn what he represents for us. I mean, I'm starting to feel like it's interesting, like Lauren compared Berenger to Ned Lowe. I'm starting to think that maybe Woodes Rogers is actually our Ned Lowe.
Oh, geez.
No, that's not true. He can't be. He can't be the Ned Lowe because he's way too deliberate. And I mean, Ned Lowe was deliberate in the way that he terrorized Eleanor. He's just a new factor. I mean, that's what's so fun about. I mean, it's not fun.
He's a very new character.
He's not fun, but I love that they've thrown in there this element that is just like we can't really classify by the rules that we've known.
Wild card,
right?
Yeah,
I love that. I love. I mean,
it does makes very compelling television. Yes, because I don't know what he's going to do.
Right. I am terrified by him, but I am also fascinated by him.
Yes.
Okay, so we have Anne being like super, super crafty, and oh my
God, it was so difficult to watch, though.
It is so difficult to watch when she grips onto those bits of glass.
Yes.
And but you know what I love about this? I mean, again, this isn't exactly their original crew that Jack got that rejected her, but I love that, this felt to me like this beautiful contrast to the fact that once upon a time there was a crew that wanted Jack but not Anne. And now some portion of that crew is this crew.
Sure.
And she's the one that saves them. I mean, that truly saves them.
Absolutely.
So I really liked that development. I mean, again, we've talked about Anne's personal development, but I like this. I like that it actually results in this moment where she becomes the salvation of the men who might have rejected her.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's very good.
So that was very satisfying to me. Super worried about her. She does not look good, but
No, she, that was a very difficult fight that she was in. It was hard to watch. And I don't know if we'll ever get Anne as we knew her back after that. She was really broken.
Yeah, she was strangled. She was, lost a lot of blood. She's been brutalized.
The hands, those super deep cuts in her hands may mean that she can't wield her swords again.
Oh, I had not thought about that. Oh man.
Yeah. And again, when we talked with Toby Schmitz about how that was a huge part of Anne's identity,
right?
Her identity as a fighter. And that's when she felt at the fullest version of herself. And she will not have that again for quite some time.
Right. Oh, man. I did not think about that. Well, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
I can see you hurting.
No. I mean, it's part of it. And, I trust that they're actually going to show us that, like the same way that with Silver's leg, we really were his problems and his process of healing were a huge part of the story. So it's very possible that we're going to have that with Anne now. Oh, poor Anne. She's amazing. She's amazing. All right, let's move on to some other women. And I think soon I will talk about, I feel like there's a fascinating thread happening with all of the women in this episode.
It has become, yes. For a show about pirates, there are a lot of amazing women who are absolutely holding these men and this island together.
Yep.
It's pretty phenomenal to watch.
Yes, it is. I'm really enjoying it. All right. Well,
I really think that this was Eleanor's episode.
This was Eleanor's episode, and oh my God.
Yes.
I love, okay. So
she may be the new queen of Nassau. Well, I may have to.
Well, it's fascinating because I actually titled, just for myself, not really, we don't really do this, but for myself, I titled this section that is Eleanor and Max and Maddie a little bit, The Three Queens.
The Three Queens. And they absolutely are. Although I do feel that Max is losing her footing.
Well, let's discuss. Okay. So we start with Eleanor's escape. Like, wasn't this interesting? Like, we'll talk, I mean, we can talk, I guess we can talk about the chaos in Nassau. I was putting that with the Pirate Rebellion, but then I decided to talk about the ladies first. So, damn, Nassau, you're a mess.
Nassau's a hot mess right now. Yes. Absolutely. You see the guy literally carrying someone's head, wearing the wig that he stole off of that head.
Yes.
This is messed up right now.
Yes,
yeah.
It is messed up. But I really appreciate, I don't know if I enjoyed watching it like this, but I appreciated the depiction of it. I mean, it just, that's what we needed to see. I mean, this is...
It was chaotic. Yeah. This is anarchy.
This is anarchy. So, and then Eleanor does the escape. And I really liked this. I felt like this was a tone we never had. This kind of like...
Eleanor was amazing.
Kind of stagecoachy feeling. Like, I mean, we had a stagecoach. Okay, we actually had a stagecoach scene.
We definitely did have a stagecoach, but yes.
And yet this had a different feeling. Like the music was really like action-y and this like getting away.
Well, remember last episode we didn't care for a lot of the action sequences and they felt a little strange and choppy and modern, but this was very good.
Oh my God.
This I felt that I was
fabulous.
In the action without it being distracting for me.
Right.
Yeah, this was beautifully done.
Yeah, no, it set the tone. I mean, we're supposed to feel like it's chaos, and yet we could focus on our characters. I think that was the difference, was that it was somehow managed to be totally chaotic and really pinpoint our focus on the people we needed to focus on.
And follow the thread a little better.
Right.
Sure.
So yeah, it was great. I loved the escape. I love that Eleanor, that she pulled the gun out of one of the soldiers' holsters so that she could shoot someone. It was just great.
It was amazing. Yeah. I think I cheered.
And I totally bought it.
I did too.
We've never seen Eleanor do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Totally believed that she could do stuff like this.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know. I feel like Eleanor, that thing she said about contorting herself, such that she's just like, fuck that. I'm shedding that now. I'm taking over again.
I suppose that's true. Although you do see still how she has retained this sense of being Woodes Rogers' wife.
Yeah.
And this ladylike quality that she's had, she is actually carrying throughout. I mean, she has more dignity than she's ever had before. She has more, she has almost like, we said Queens of Nassau, like a regal quality that she never had as Eleanor Guthrie.
She didn't swear.
Oh, that's a good call.
She took over from she arrived. The men were like, oh, don't worry, ma'am. We've got this covered. And she's like,
absolutely, you don't have this covered.
Right.
Oh, she was so smart, so capable, so fierce.
Might I suggest?
Oh, I liked her so much.
That Eleanor was doing something we appreciate in other characters. She might be synthesizing different parts of herself.
Yes. Oh, something near and dear to my own heart, personally. Yes.
Yes, it's true. Right. So we have Eleanor being badass and a good leader.
Sure.
Minus the thing that she needed to learn still up until the last episode. Or no, last episode is when she learned it, as being a good leader about the effectiveness of your choices and not about just like control for its own sake or or, doing things that aren't smart. There is not a moment here where she's not smart, and she's learned how to be smart and quiet. Like the thing that she finally learned from Max, that she was trying to convince Berenger.
Oh, right. Power least perceived.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, in the beginning, it's super perceived because she's like, okay, guys, you are clueless. Let me tell you what's happening. But she managed this time, these advisors of Woodes Rogers, that she needed to like move herself into this space of being the docile wife on the side.
Sure.
This is the same guys.
So that she could get to this space now. Mm-hmm.
Right. But she's like, okay, yeah, we're done with that.
Yes.
But she did it well. She did it smart.
She did do it well. She did do it smart. Yeah, a hard thing smart.
Yeah.
Anne.
I know. Well, again, we're going to have a lot of threads, a lot of connecting threads here. All right. So next we have the scene with her and Mrs. Hudson, which I found very touching.
Yeah, which I don't have notes on. It was. And Mrs. Hudson missed for us last week. Right?
What? Sorry.
I was saying she missed for us last week.
She did. Right. And I had a
when we were
feeling
talking about her children.
Right. I had a feeling that was something that was going to be important later on.
Right. Because it didn't, it was a misfit last week.
Right.
It didn't seem to have any place. So,
it super has a place
episode,
here.
It does. So, we kept on, I at least was speculating that Maddie was pregnant because of the way that she was holding her stomach. And that threw me off the track. I didn't think, I never thought about Eleanor being pregnant. Although I think that somebody in the live tweet last week.
Somebody in the live tweet did mention it last week.
That's what I thought. Well, cheers to you.
Person in live
tweet person who called it.
Yes, that's very true. Before we get to the pregnancy, I just wanted to talk about, I really loved, Eleanor's just so honestly sad. I mean, I understand her. She's like, seriously, I did all of this crazy shit. And here I am back at square one.
Right back where she started, yeah.
And I totally get her here. I mean, she's, that just makes so much sense. And then they talk about the pregnancy, and then she talks about her own childhood.
Yes.
And then... Right, and Mrs. Hudson would like her to leave, and she talks about how this is no place for a child. But then she says, I can't, I either have to raise my child in this brutality or go and leave my husband to deal with this alone. And then she says the line, this place, it leaves you no options but to hurt the ones you love.
Which reminds us of what Anne said,
exactly.
Right? What was Anne's line? I assume that you have it written down there, too.
It's funny. I don't actually have it in front of me, but I think I have it memorized. She says, this fucking place, it makes you do things you don't want to do.
Right.
So they're not the same, but they're so similar. I mean, again, it's the idea that this island, this plot of land, somehow compels us.
Right.
To do bad things or to do things we are uncomfortable with.
It has almost become a character.
It has. And it kind of was before, but it was a character on the flip side. Like, again, remember that James in London had presented this as a utopia.
Oh, God.
Right?
Jeez. No, I did not remember as utopia.
I mean, he didn't say utopia, but he said to Miranda that this is a place where the three of us could go.
Right.
And basically live outside of civilization. This is the thing. Right. I mean, we are now having the flip side of the idea that the frontier is the utopia. The frontier is the place that offers you all of the options.
Sure.
And now we're having the flip side of that the frontier might be, because it's so brutal. And it's just like, this is super bleak. I mean, again, this is where my whole thing about Black Sails being ultimately optimistic really gets tested, because like, okay, wait, so the frontier, like, I liked the idea of the frontier being a place where you have options, because we know that civilization is bad. So like,
right.
So like outside of civilization obviously must be good. And yet now we keep hearing from our characters outside of civilization really puts you in a bad place where you do bad things that make you really unhappy. So what exactly. What should we be wanting? Where should we want to go
Right.
live, Liz? Where do we want to go
Exactly.
live? If we
Yeah.
don't want to be in London and we don't want to be in Nassau, where do we want to be
This
exactly?
is the human condition. Yep. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So then we get into the conversation with Eleanor and Max, and I just wanted to remind everyone this idea that Ruth brought up, the idea of building a wall and saving who you can.
Oh, uh-huh. Okay.
Is this now what, I mean, Eleanor was, she was more like Flint. She was specifically aligned with Flint for a lot of our story. Is this now what Eleanor is trying to do? Is she trying to build a wall and save who she can? I mean, she kind of did that by going to the fort. That is a wall.
No, I think that's absolutely what she's trying to do. And I actually respect that quite a lot from Eleanor. I love the conversation she had with Max about how she couldn't see where she started or rather where the dividing line between herself and Nassau, where it ended and she began. And she couldn't find something sharp enough to cut that
right
at that time. And it was sad, of course, to see Max say, well, what would have been enough?
Mm-hmm.
And there was just that pause, because now it would seem that now her life with Woodes Rogers and this fact that she's carrying a baby, of course, that she's going to be a mother, that's what's ultimately been enough so that she can completely cut ties with this place,
mm-hmm.
that she can turn her back on all the dreams that she had for it. She can let those dreams die.
But Max wasn't enough.
But Max was not enough. No, Max was not enough. And just seek that safety for herself and for her family,
mm-hmm.
and for those few people that she can carry with her out of there. And it's reminiscent of Anne, too, when she's telling Jack, let's just go somewhere. Let's get out of here. Let's just go and be safe and turn our backs on this lifestyle. And not everyone can do it.
She said in season 3 and in season 4. Okay, there are more aspects of this conversation that I wanted to bring up real quickly.
Sure, of course.
Max, of course, does bring up, like, Eleanor apologizes for the one day, and Max is like, I've lost everything. Like, if you're going to apologize, this is really about everything you've been doing that I've been telling you not to do. I've been trying to tell you to be smart, and you didn't listen to me. So there's that element. I wanted to talk about severing. This is the idea of having something sharp and severing. This is a callback to what Israel Hand said about severing the ties with the governor, like the idea of literally cutting throats.
Sure.
That he was the one that Israel Hands was the one who severed the tie with England. Again, we're really just, there's just a lot of like birth imagery going on.
I was going to say we're back to birth again, right? Because I hear several chords. That's exactly what I think of.
Yeah,
sure.
We are back to birthing again. That the idea so that's a fascinating thing too. That to be in a place that's making you do things you don't want to do, but you're so tied to it, that severing is a way of birthing yourself. Like that perhaps what Eleanor is saying is that I wasn't ready to do that, but now maybe I am. The other thing is just this interplay of what I'm calling the three queens. So we had Eleanor in the beginning who wasn't able to sever herself, right? And then we had Max, who was the collateral damage of that, essentially. And so she chose to be like Eleanor. Right now, it's Max is the one who needs to make that choice. Like Eleanor obviously has made the choice. She's ready.
Right.
But Max is the one who's now possibly, we could argue, the one who can't find where she ends and Nassau begins. And then our third, we can't call it, they're like triplets almost. I mean, John talked about Maddie and Eleanor as being almost like two people separated at birth. But in a way, I kind of see this as another triangle. That Maddie is now the one who's immersing herself. She's the one who's now binding herself to Nassau.
Okay.
And so it's just this interesting interplay that these three women intersect in interesting ways, right? Like, so, the parallels between Eleanor and Max have been explicit, in the show. Like Max even,
Yeah.
basically said, "I am now you."
Right. She did.
Yeah. But the parallels with Eleanor and Maddie also, because they were basically, the daughters of the most powerful men in their separate
Sure.
communities, and they also are bound by Scott and the fact that they were childhood friends. So it's just there's just this. I'm just really into this interplay of these three characters.
Right.
That they're each at different stages in their relationship to Nassau. They're each in different stages in their relative queen status from each other and towards Nassau and their separate and combined communities. I just really love this. I just think it's really, really interesting. And basically, Eleanor is saying, I'm sorry for what you've lost. I'm sorry for today. I'm sorry for all the other things. I'm sorry that you weren't the person who was enough. I mean, she said, I almost did it. She said, I wanted to.
Almost. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I love that. I love that Max didn't bring that up, but Eleanor went there, that Eleanor finally talked about, that day in the second episode of season 1, that day that was so weighty for me, the day that I really believe, sent Max in the direction that she went throughout, for better and for worse. I love that Eleanor brought it up herself. I love that she understood that that's really what she needed to apologize for.
How do you feel that Max took that apology?
She did. I mean, it wasn't easy for her because she understood that this always meant that she was never enough. I mean, she's so sad at the end of it, and yet she accepted it. We know because she, at the end, wants to help Eleanor.
Yes.
I know. It's rough.
Yeah, Max just seems so...
She's been adrift for a while.
Alone.
I mean, that's the thing. She went down this road where she decided to be like Eleanor, and then it took her a while, I think, to realize that being like Eleanor really isn't actually... It's not an enviable position to be in.
No, and it's against her nature, I think. She and Eleanor do not think or feel the same way. She has a very different... I'm just a more sensitive soul, I think. Even when she says,
I think so too. I think so
Silver,
too.
that I couldn't have lived with it.
Right. Okay.
I couldn't have lived with killing you. I know we'll get to that. But Eleanor absolutely could have.
Let's go to our pirate rebellion. I mean, we won't. We're going to end that with Silver and Max. But yes, oh my God, Silver and Max. Okay, we're not there yet. We need to focus on a lot of other stuff. Okay, so we have our chaos, which we already talked about. The thing in the pirate rebellion grouping that I wanted to say is like, Dooley seems super freaked out. Like he's walking around the chaos and he's just like, holy shit.
Yeah, which is kind of audience surrogate, I feel like.
Yes. And he's not some like delicate flower, Dooley.
No, he's seen stuff go down. But this is something new. Well, it's the closest thing that they had to civilization for a long time.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm sure it's a shock to see.
I think it seems like it's kind of a shock to everyone, but Flint seems the only person who like even remotely made room for this scenario.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we get into the governor's mansion. Yeah, I love all this. Sorry. The Flint and Silver stuff here is, I don't 100% know what to make of all of it, but I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so Flint is giving his speech to, I guess, the captains that he chose, and he says, Nassau works best when its men know what crews they belong to and what captains to answer to. And he says, we need structure, which I just love. I love Flint all like being, again.
Well, and I wonder if this is his naval training coming back a little bit.
Totally. Right.
Yes,
He's trying to be a leader here. I mean, he's being a leader. I don't know how effectively. But yeah, I mean, I think this is like McGraw is poking his head through because it's one thing to wage a war and it's another thing to govern. And he's trying to make that shift and he's trying to take everyone with him. Not so successfully.
Right.
So the one captain speaks up and says, what, crews with no ships? And he says, no one's going to want to take orders right now. And then Flint's like seriously, I picked you all because I thought you were worth something. And then the captain looks over at Silver, and Silver says, "You heard him."
Mm-hmm. Now, this was great. I love that they did this twice, because the first time I saw this, I thought, oh, hell. I mean, this is what we feared about driving a wedge between Flint and Silver, is that Silver was, and it's what Billy was trying to do.
Oh,
it's going to overflow Flint. So I was worried about this until we got the second time around, where they do the same thing
with Dooley.
It's right, yeah, and Flint gets to say, "You heard him," and I do like the two of them leading in tandem and side by side, and they are unstoppable together. I really do think that they are.
But you have to see the differentiation here, which is very important, is that the Nassau captains, the captains who've been living with the mythology of Long John Silver, are the ones who look to Silver.
Okay, sure. Uh-huh.
And it's Dooley, one of the Walrus crew.
A Walrus crew, sure. That's a good point.
He's the one who looks to Flint, and Flint has to say, you heard him. So that's already so subtly setting up this conflict that's going to be part of the conversation between Billy and Silver. I adore this. It was so good. Yes. It was so subtle and so beautiful. So it did two things at the same time. It showed what Flint said, that as long as they see no daylight between us, so it does that purpose. But it also shows that even if there's not daylight between them, there are factions, different factions, that each faction slightly leans towards one of them over the other.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
I also wanted to bring up that, we are full on with your whole thing about different types of leadership. This is full on paternalism. Like, is this not the way parents talk? Like the whole
It was so parenting, wasn't it?
The whole
like,
if we have a unified front, then we're doing a better job as parents. Yeah.
Yes. Don't ask your mom. I just told you no.
Exactly. Yes. This super reminded me of that, of parenting.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, yes.
Flint and Silver are super married right now.
Super married right now. It's so true. And they're co-parenting very well.
And they're co-parenting
for now, at least.
They got their troubled teenager Billy that they're just trying to keep in line.
Oh my goodness.
You cannot borrow the keys.
That totally works.
You wrecked it last time. Do you remember?
You definitely wrecked it last time. Oh no. Oh, Billy, we just turned him into a petulant teenager.
With a great beard.
Excellent biceps. Okay. But yes, Silver's quite mad at Billy. Right. We skipped over the thing where Flint says the thing about daylight and Silver's like, yeah, but now that it's just the two of us, can I just say this really is kind of scary? And Flint says, all life begins with violence and wailing. It will pass. And then Silver says, a lot of things start with violence and wailing and also end that way. I'm happy that you're so optimistic. Words I never expected to hear in relation to James Flint.
Optimistic Flint. Oh, dear.
I know. So I just enjoyed that. I enjoyed that exchange.
Yeah, of course.
But Silver is super angry. So when Dooley's talking to them, Silver's just like, I'm sorry, where's Billy? And he has a good point. But it's interesting how he says it. So he says that he's stolen an army pledged to us and damaged the alliance with the enslaved people. But then he's super scary. I mean, I just feel like we need to talk about where Silver lies on the whole liked and feared spectrum right now. And he says, if Billy's not here within an hour, I promise he will regret it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely playing feared just now.
He is playing feared right now, and Dooley's uncomfortable. That's when Dooley turns to Flint.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. So, okay. So then we have also, Can I just say, like, I really like Flint respecting Maddie.
Oh, yes.
Is this
absolutely.
this is just our thing, isn't it? It's just like when people are cool with Maddie, we like them.
Then we like them immediately. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
That's not a bad way to be.
Pretty much, yeah. So Flint comes to, I also really like just like, I mean, I know this is also a triangle and who knows where this triangle is going to lead us, but I don't know, just the Flint walking up to Maddie and Silver, just standing there looking, both of them, to be honest, so regal. Like, I don't know. I like Silver and Maddie as a team. I hope that's something I continue to like, God knows. But yes, so Flint says we're properly angry, but clearly he means you, Silver, are like super angry and we need to deal with this. And then he quotes Maddie. He says,
yes, which is so wonderful.
I know. He says, a very wise woman recently told me one should not allow personal feelings to cloud reality. Again, now I'm going to go back to our three queens. This is what Max said to Eleanor. This is what Eleanor finally learned and said to Berenger. And this is what Maddie said to Flint.
Wow.
I love these women.
Yes.
They are doing the good work. And essentially, Anne said a similar thing, that it's not fear to do a hard thing smart. Like, it's just...
Right.
What? Just... Can all the men just shut up and let the women run things right now?
Just for a little while.
Seriously. Like, the women are just, they are being the smart ones right now. And I
don't think I've ever heard Flint call anyone wise.
Yep.
I think this is the first time he's used that word.
Well, we're going to need to discuss at the end where we think Flint is right now. I mean, this is, again, we said last episode that we were seeing possibly the sanest Flint we've ever seen. Let's talk at the very end when we get to that gate with Eleanor about what we think is going on with Flint.
Okay. Sure.
We're seeing a lot of new stuff from Flint in the past two episodes.
That's true.
Okay, and he also quotes her saying that Billy has influence and that best not be ignored. And then Silver asked a very good question. He said, so wait, was that advice from that wise woman?
Sure.
Before or after Billy tried to kill y'all?
Before or after he tried to kill you. Yeah, good call. Good point.
That's a good point. We don't go anywhere with that. Okay, and now Billy arrives.
Yes, he does. Looking just smashing, I have to say.
He does look smashing, no question. But now I just see like surly teenager. I'm sorry, that was really. I'm like really happy and sad that you said that, because that's now going to shape all of my views of these scenes. But it's really quite appropriate, I've got to say.
Oh, yeah.
So Billy starts this conversation by saying, just in case you thought I was avoiding you, I wasn't avoiding you. I was busy taking care of business. For all of us.
Which I actually liked. Yeah, it was, I mean, a little bit arrogantly done, but it was a reminder.
A little bit.
Okay, pretty arrogantly done. But he does, I mean, he has to come out with something. I mean, otherwise
Absolutely
he's just
does.
like kicked puppy coming in,
Exactly.
Or not even a kicked puppy. What was it? Yeah.
He's been summoned. He needs to counteract
when
the
you
having
peed on the rug. He's that kind of puppy.
Yes, he has peed on the rug of Nassau, and Silver's ready with that rolled up newspaper.
That's exactly right. Yep. He's just trying to remind him why he loves him.
Yep.
That they're on the same team, sort of, except that time I tried to kill your girlfriend. Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, Billy.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So, yes, he talks about managing the transition, and Flint says, I think we need to discuss what exactly we're transitioning to. And Maddie, so like, I found this fascinating. So Flint and Maddie are like, even after Flint just said, I understand we're angry, maybe we should not show our emotion. Flint and Maddie are like super being bad cop right now. And then Silver's mate, like he starts out as good cop. So Flint's like, well, we need reassurance that Maddie can safely go and talk to the people on the Underhill estate. And this is, for me, one of the more terrifying Silver moments, I've got to say. Like,
Yeah.
Silver's just like...
I was going to say good cop? I don't know if that was good cop.
Right. Well, pretend good cop? I don't even
Pretend
know.
good cop. Like, he was absolutely... that was some heavy sarcasm.
Right. Yeah, but it's so freaky. So, and he starts out by saying, of course, we can trust Billy, but then he immediately goes to Billy would not violate the trust that I placed in him as a brother and as a friend. And it's so interesting because, like, he's definitely not talking to him like a brother or a friend.
No.
And it's also interesting that it wasn't actually Silver that gave Billy this role of being the propaganda person on Nassau.
Sure, no.
That was actually Flint. Like, Silver's really just riffing off of this mythology that Billy created for him.
Ah, yeah.
The two of them never made an agreement like this, that Billy would stay and create this mythic creature of Long John Silver.
Right.
It's just very interesting. And then he threatens him. He says, if Billy would do something as disloyal as that, he knows I would stop at nothing to repay him. Mm-hmm. And again, there are other people in the room. So we have, when they're witnesses, we can always assume pirate theater to some extent.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to grant Billy, like, he is, again, I think Billy's making really bad choices. And not being a good leader and not being so smart about the big picture. But I do like that he's like, okay, so does everyone feel better now that you've gotten that out?
Exactly. Yeah. Now that you've tried to shame me, I know I did bad. Yes. No, I quite like Billy in this episode. I mean,
this teenager image is really working
badly. Huh? Yes. Yeah. He messed up badly. He did. But you're right. It is. Yeah. I know I'm grounded. Jeez. Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. Okay. And then he says, he's like, look, just so you know, nothing happens in Nassau without me knowing it's happening.
Right. Yeah, which is very cool.
By the way, I have Max.
Which was a little sinister, but neat. It was a smart move.
Yes. No, it was definitely smart. I was really worried for Max in that moment because, like, okay, we've seen that Billy, like, hung and burned or did something horrible to people.
I forgot about
maybe
that.
Now we know that he killed the Underhill family. Like,
so he did for sure. That was definitely
there's nothing for sure, but somebody killed them.
Somebody
but
did.
The estate is in Billy's possession. So
yeah.
I mean, again, I had thought maybe that that Behringer's militia did it, but Behringer's militia obviously didn't take the estate because Billy has it.
Yeah.
So,
oh dear. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Right. Oh no. Oh, Billy's gone super dark. We're about to talk about that some more because now we're going to have the meeting between Billy and Silver.
Yes. Which I quite like. And again, I like Billy in this scene reminding him, when did this become you and Flint? Just a couple of weeks ago, he says. Or did he say days ago? Just a little while ago. I think he specifically...
He didn't say a specific time frame, but he
said
not
they're
so
very
long
careful
ago,
not to give specific times around here, I think.
Right.
So, but yes, he just said a little while ago, it was you and me saying that Flint was going to lead us all to our destruction. And now it's suddenly the two of you against the world, which is a really good point, actually.
Oh, it's a very good point.
I remember it's a very good point. And I think, I don't know, it was interesting. I think Silver did have a flicker of doubt because of it. It was a well-crafted argument from Billy. And bringing up the storm again was smart, too.
Right.
That he would drive us into the storm again and again and again. And how can we be sure that this isn't just another storm in a long line of them?
Right. And that is, that's what the two of them talked about, that Flint is just basically a force of destruction. And, he's not wrong. Although, again, we always have these moments where characters are separated from other characters and then they're speaking from their knowledge of the characters last time they saw them. So, like, we've had that with Eleanor and Vane. Like, remember when Eleanor and Vane saw each other and we were like, well, but actually you two are saying things about each other that are relevant to each other, like, last season. But you haven't been together, right?
Right. Yes, yes.
So, like, I'm not saying that Flint isn't capable of a large amount of destruction. And yet, which of the two of them's been the more like randomly destructive person lately? Flint or Billy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that
Billy.
really undercuts Billy's argument. But let's start with
It's
the thing.
true.
Let's start with the other thing. I mean, again, I feel like this conversation is actually just repeating over and over again how Billy is not his former self, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Slightly terrifying. With a little, like, again, like that thing where a lie cloaks itself. Like, there's just enough reason in what he's saying to make it sound reasonable, but most of his argument is actually not. Most of it's about darkness. Okay, so he starts out, Silver says, he's like, whatever, I'm walking out with her no matter what. Billy asks for his 5 minutes.
Right.
And then he talks about Max.
Clock's ticking.
Oh, Liz, seriously?
Oh, I guess you didn't.
Shit. How did I manage not to be? I think I was so focused on them that I managed to not be just broken by that again. At least he didn't say clock's ticking and I have this teacup right here.
Right.
and let me play some piano.
Right. Ding, ding. Tug on all your heartstrings. Oy.
Okay. So Billy's talking about Max. What I find disturbing here is that Billy says, have you asked yourself why Eleanor wants Max? And then he immediately goes into the thing that I feel like characters in Black Sails should have learned already from the last episode, but they weren't watching it the way we were. He's like, I think it would soothe the chaos if there was justice for the person who basically, screwed us.
Oh, yes.
Right? Here we go.
Right.
Public.
Always wanting to do revenge.
I know.
Sure.
Everyone wants this public retribution thing. Everyone just really loves that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
it ends up going badly for people, though.
Exactly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Billy really wants that. And then he says, and this is actually why I wanted to move the Eleanor and Max discussion before them, because he says, well, I know that's why Eleanor wants Max, because she wants to prevent us from doing that. But we know why Eleanor wants Max. Eleanor wants Max because of compassion. Eleanor had compassion for Mrs. Hudson. She had compassion for Max.
Right.
Eleanor has moved, at least temporarily. I will never make statements. I will never make statements about Black Sails characters actually leaving behind their faults anymore, because I think I kind of did that with Jack, but I didn't really, but everyone thought I was doing that. And obviously, Jack.
Obviously, he went right back to his name. Yep.
So I'm not going to say this is permanent, but in this moment, Eleanor's motivations are benevolent and noble. Billy's motivations, on the other hand.
Right.
So not only are his motivations not noble, it seems almost incapable right now of seeing those. And it's the same thing with wanting to release the men. He doesn't want to give up Max, and Silver's like, but we'll get those 20 men back. And Billy's against it, and Silver's like, excuse me? Like, these are your brothers. Isn't that what you care about? And Billy says, sure, I care about them. Like, he's like, I care about them as much as you do. Flint doesn't care about them. But then he immediately goes into how he doesn't care about them. Like, then he's like, well, I have the army. The army here is mine, and that bothers Flint. And those 20 soldiers would be loyal to Flint. So that's the only reason Flint wants them. And I was just like, what has happened to you, Billy? Like, this is not Billy. This is not our Billy at all. Like, that he's like, I don't want to save people because they would be loyal to the guy I don't like.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of terrifying what I keep thinking about, that thing that Flint said about civilization being gray and gnarled.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
I kind of feel like Billy's a little bit gray and gnarled right now.
Gray and gnarled. Interesting. Yeah, I guess I keep on waiting for Billy to snap out of it.
He might.
Power has certainly gone to his head. He might yet. You're right. He might yet.
Well, I think that he still thinks. I mean, again,
he ends up on the wrong side of those two.
Yep. Well, I mean, again, we don't know that they're on the right side. We know he's on the opposite side of them. That doesn't mean he's on the wrong side of morality,
sure.
right? We still don't know where this is all going
to
play out. But I feel like in a way he's kind of switched with Flint. Like he thinks he's doing good. Billy thinks he's still, or maybe he's coexisting with Flint. Maybe they both are in this place. But whatever it is, he's approached Flint in that. Again, he's not a big picture person, not in that way, but in the way that he thinks he's being moral when he's not.
Right. Yeah.
He's so fixated on what he has decided is the right road. Right. And for him, the right road is a road without Flint.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
he's so fixated on that he has compromised his former balanced sense of morality. And I find this troubling. I mean, super troubling. This one. So yeah. Okay. So next he goes, right. Then he talks about the storm, and that's very rational. Again, that whole idea that like the darkness cloaks itself in some amount of rationality.
Sure. Absolutely.
I feel like this is a super example of that. Because yes, that storm part really makes sense. And I do agree with you. I think there's a moment where that resonates with Silver. And then Billy tries his third mode of persuasion, which is to talk about Maddie.
Right.
Which we find out really resonates with Silver, but it makes Silver not want to talk to Billy anymore. Because it does. Billy's talking about Flint, but it kind of sounds to me like he's threatening Maddie.
A little bit of a threat. Yeah, no, I would agree. Or just anytime you make someone aware of that kind of vulnerability, then I think it would be very difficult and foolish for Silver to not look at it as a potential threat if he got on the wrong side of Billy, because Billy at least knows and recognizes that that's the way to get to Silver.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's interesting that like I'm so freaked out by Billy. Silver's pretty scary here, and somehow I'm like, go Silver. So I understand that my own reactions to the two of them might not be completely balanced and rational at the same time, as they're not necessarily being so balanced and rational. Okay, and meanwhile, in the ground floor of the tavern, we have Flint and Israel Hands having a conversation.
Which I have to say, every time Israel Hands talks, his voice surprises me. It's just a little bit like higher pitched, and he's such a big guy, and I expect like this gravelly sound, and you get like this light kind of Irish lilt thing, and it just throws me off.
He sounds a little Irish here, right?
Yeah.
He makes good points. So
no, he does. Of course,
right. He makes good points. He also makes fascinating points, like what his intent may be. Okay, so he says, "I heard you were here when I cut that cord." He didn't say that this time, but he's on that day, which is interesting. Like, so how did he hear that? Did Silver tell him that? Like, I find that fascinating as well. Like, it
had to be Silver, right?
So
it had to have been.
So this is exposing a little bit of intimacy between Silver and Israel Hands, right? Yeah. That might have been more than what Flint was expecting.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then he says, "That was a good day for me. I did something that no one could or would." And immediately, I mean, I doubt that it's intentional that they're both gingers, but I was just like, the minute I heard him say it, I saw that gif that I use all the time. No one can do what I can do.
That's right. I can't do what I can do. Yeah.
I just was like, wow, this is kind of freaky parallel, because Flint has always been our main guy, and Israel Hands has always been a subordinate guy.
Sure.
Although not in his own version of the story. Like he said that last episode, or 2 episodes ago. Wait, which episode? Last episode, where he said, where he was threw the fish to Silver, and he said, "When I did it."
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
He said, "How are you going to take Nassau?" "When I did it." He's an interesting person. So he said, "I thought that had earned me a place for eternity," or something, for a very long time. I forget what word he used with teach. That turned out to be not so much. And then he said, and then he compared it to Flint. He said, "You're counseling Long John Silver right now to do what you want, but how long before he decides that's not really what he wants to do?"
Right.
And this has also reminded me of Scott talking about Silver when he said, oh, that one might be the best storyteller of them all.
Right. Yeah.
What happens when he chooses to use it for his own purposes and not for those of Flint?
That's right.
Right?
Oh.
So this, just throw it
and
out.
we have, 6 episodes left to go? So much could happen.
So much could happen still.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting that we have these moments of them with no daylight between them, and then these moments that remind us of doubt.
Sure.
And then that is furthered when Silver comes in and Flint says what happened, and he said, we won. That's all that matters. He doesn't tell him. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Silver and Max, because this is what I've been waiting for the whole time, to talk about Silver and Max.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
See, I've been waiting so long that I don't know what to say. Okay, so first of all, the way he sits, like, is he just tired because of his crutch? And I wouldn't blame him for that. Or is this a deliberate, like, weirdly nonchalant kind of like, I'm like basically hold your fate in my hands, but I can't even be bothered to sit up properly and talk to you about it? Or a mix of the two?
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, he's like leaning. He's not really looking at her. He's just,
right.
His whole body language is really fascinating to me here.
Oh, I do remember that a little bit now.
And again, as a storyteller, it's hard for me to imagine that Silver's doing anything not deliberately.
Yes. It's deliberate.
It is definitely.
I don't think it's because he's tired.
Right.
No, it's deliberate.
Yeah, I think this is, he's being possibly like that kind of nonchalant Regal, like, oh,
Sure,
I need to decide
absolutely.
what happens with you, but I'm going to do that while lounging and like staring at the ceiling.
Yes. Exactly. Nope, that's absolutely right. Definitely intentional.
Okay. I love his line about that he should be angry with her. I mean, he really could be very angry with her. I mean, she really, he's like, you made the last couple of days difficult for me, I think he said. It's just,
right.
like super understatement. And then he says,
one way to say it.
I'd be more angry with you if I wasn't preoccupied with being angry at other people right now.
Yeah.
Which again, that kind of fits into that same weird nonchalance.
It sure does. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's a good argument for the nonchalance.
Yes,
absolutely
right.
It is.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But it also delights me. So then he says, if I free you, something tells me you'll be a problem for me again soon.
Right.
And then she says, of course not. Why would I? It's just like, seriously? Like, you just destroyed their whole invasion. That's not a crazy thing for Silver to say at all. But the part about this I love is what you brought up already is that he says, why didn't you kill me? And she says, it would have solved some problems, but caused others I chose not to live with. And he says, which problems? And she said that I would have to live with it.
Yeah.
And this is such a beautiful callback to Anne.
Max moment. Yeah. Oh, to Anne. Why so to Anne?
Because she says almost the identical thing about not wanting to hurt Max.
Oh, yeah.
That she would have to live with
that. Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
Again,
it made more sense, I think, coming from Anne, though, because Anne had such intense feelings for Max. Whereas Max doesn't have those kinds of feelings for Silver. It's just that humanitarian side of Max, and just that her compassion and her empathy goes beyond those that she is that she loves directly.
Right, but I love that it ties the two of them together, that they're such different characters, and yet they both understand that the idea of doing violence to someone that they've had a relationship with of some sort is something that level of introspection of not just being about the goal. Again, just a reminder, we've had so many people do really horrible stuff just in the name of revenge or showing or whatever, without any sense of like, who am I? How will I live with the consequences of what I've done? I mean, come on. Woods Rogers in the last episode, just like people who just like refuse to connect any of their actions to like their ability to live with themselves. But now we've had Max and Anne really point this out in such beautiful ways.
Right. Yeah.
And again,
that's good.
Max and Silver haven't been close, but there is a bond between them. They have, we talked about this a lot with Alistair, like they have had serious connections with each other. Again, not romantic,
Right.
although they did have sex
Mm-hmm.
with a whole bunch of other people. And
Yeah.
sorry, didn't need to bring that up.
Nope, that's okay. Mm-hmm.
But I love this connection between them. They've not been in contact for a long time. And yet, this is a beautiful parallel between Max and Anne about the fact that deep down, I mean, they're very different types of people, and Anne certainly has killed a lot of people. Max has not. But that there is some core between them, this core sense of like, if I'm going to do things, I need to be able to live with it in the morning.
Right.
And I like that. Okay, so then they get to the mysterious part, is that...
This is weird, Daphne.
Okay, so we get to the mysterious part where Silver's like, wait, what were you going to do with me? And Max explains that Anne had found this guy who basically more humanely employs convicts than... Right? But also, in addition, makes money by taking troublesome family members of great families and makes them disappear from London society. And Silver is very interested. And he says, what families? And Max is super surprised, as are all of us, about why Silver's so interested in this. What was your...
Well, I thought we were going to get some Silver backstory.
Me too!
I was not ready for them to throw us to Thomas Hamilton at all.
Okay, I'm so glad that you said that, because that was the first place I went, and I was like, oh man, is this because I'm so super fixated on Silver's backstory?
No, I went there too.
Right? Okay. I feel much better now, because I do, as our listeners may know, I do have a tendency sometimes to get fixated. So I'm happy.
A little bit fixated, perhaps. Yes. It happens.
With love, but yes, I'm happy to hear that it's not just me. Okay, so yeah, that was fascinating. And now we can get into the prisoner exchange and talk about it some more. Because yeah, that was definitely, I was just like, Silver? What does this have to do with Silver? Who's Silver's family? Where is Silver from? Okay. All right, so now we get to the prisoner exchange. Can I point out De Groot? Still alive. De Groot's one of the guys.
Oh,
we see him in the doorway.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I didn't realize at all. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Me too. I was super happy to see him. Okay, so I guess great. De Groot, minus an ear, still alive.
Yeah.
Okay, so while this is happening, Silver explains to Flint about what Billy said about Maddie. And
did you notice also that Silver said Maddie at some point?
I know.
Instead of Maddie?
One of our listeners has pointed this out on Twitter that, like, yeah, I agree with the listener. I really like the way Silver says it.
Okay. Okay.
I'm also a bit into that. Yes, that is how he's been saying her name.
Oh.
It's kind of lovely.
Okay.
So yeah,
Is that more like how her mom and dad said it? No,
I don't think we ever heard her parents say it, so I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
So,
okay.
right. So it could just be like random accent thing. It could also be like that thing where like someone's, romantic partner kind of does a different version of their name than everyone else.
Yeah.
So I just don't know which one of those things it is.
Could be.
It could be. It could be. But yes, it is lovely, whatever the source of it. And so Silver finally tells Flint what Billy said. And then Flint says, well, that would be a smart thing to say on Billy's part.
Right.
Should I be concerned that it took you almost 2 hours to tell me?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Silver basically says yes. I love what he says. He says that we're least rational when we're most vulnerable.
Yes.
And
that's a great line.
It is a great line. I mean, yeah, this is one of those moments where just like Black Sails hands us a line where you're like, yep, this is the human condition.
This is why we had a thesis statement game.
This is why. This is why.
Yeah.
Although these episodes are so dense and have so much stuff going on, thesis statement
it would be really
game,
hard to narrow down
right?
to one.
Thesis. I kind of happy that we switched from thesis statement game. It would have been really difficult in this season. But that would have been one of the contenders. And then he recognizes that she is the point where he's most vulnerable.
Right.
And then he says, I assume we're close to an impossible victory. Would you trade it all to have Thomas Hamilton?
Which is so crazy. They're not going to do that, right?
I
don't know.
Is this? Are we?
They could do
right.
anything.
This could totally be Chekhov's Thomas Hamilton. Like we could.
Chekhov's Thomas Hamilton.
I don't know. I mean, it works as a hypothetical, and yet, I mean, again, there have been listeners. I have to say publicly.
What's funny is like this is your thing that you've always said. Like this is the one thing that you want is for Flint and Thomas just like right off into the sunset together.
And yet, every listener who has emailed us and said, "Could this be a thing?" I have said, "There is no way."
No.
Right?
There's no way Thomas Hamilton is dead. It's
again,
true. You've said it a million times.
We don't know anything. We really don't know anything. But the listeners who
we
are listening,
really don't.
right?
It's purely speculation.
Right. But the
Purely
listeners who are listening to us right
part.
now, where I said there's no way, I apologize.
Right? Apparently there's a way.
Right. They just hinted at it. So I don't know. I don't know.
That's insane. That would be lovely.
It would be interesting.
And they also said north. Okay. Okay. When we were talking with John Steinberg, he said something about Flint dying in his room in Savannah, which I thought for sure Treasure Island said Havana and not Savannah. Do you remember?
Oh, no, I don't.
See, now I'm wondering because Savannah, just north of Florida.
I think it is Savannah, actually, because I feel like a listener made that connection to a listener who wants Thomas to be alive actually made that connection in an email. I don't remember. To Charleston. I don't remember. I don't.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't remember the details. Yeah, this is. Yeah, we're just. Now we're just. Again, I just said to you before we started podcasting, I am done. No more speculation. This show.
Yeah, who knows?
Right.
Could be anything. Just watch.
Right.
Watch and enjoy.
Exactly. This show is taking us in directions I hadn't imagined, and probably will continue to, and even more so as this season goes on.
I hope so. Yes.
Again, this totally works as just a hypothetical as well. I mean, this is Silver, and that's actually the more interesting conversation in my mind. I mean, I would be thrilled to see Thomas Hamilton again. I would be so happy. It doesn't seem like this show is the kind of show where someone like Thomas Hamilton survives.
Really doesn't.
As a hypothetical, though, it's fascinating. So he says, would you trade it all for Thomas Hamilton? Flint says, I don't think he would want me to. When we're so close to the goal he gave his life for, which is also fascinating because don't think this is really what, this is back to
this is not
this
the
is
goal.
back to Flint not quite like Flint telling himself a story that he's doing what Thomas always wanted.
Sure. Yeah.
But
this is not,
right.
Yeah, that is not what Thomas had in mind.
I love the callback to the conversation between Silver and Maddie in 401 that when Flint says that, Silver says, I don't believe that's what I was asking you.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
So, just Silver and his two spouses.
Yes.
Yes. Last episode, by the way, you said that Silver and Maddie were super married. And in this episode, you said that Silver and Flint are super married. And I really like that. I'm very amused. This show loves it. Loves its funny triangles.
They sure do.
So he says, let's assume that his father was as dark as you thought, but that he couldn't murder him.
Right.
And then he says, would you trade this war to make it so? It's some kind of hell to choose between two irreplaceable things. Oh, and I didn't bring up that with Eleanor. She used those words, some kind of hell.
Yeah, she did. That's
right. So that we have the mirroring of some kind of hell when Eleanor is talking about what this island does to people and the choices they make.
We're back to what Andrew Dice was talking about with Lost. Andrew and Alistair were going on about Lost and Purgatory on the island.
But for Silver to now be suddenly mirroring what Eleanor said when she's severing herself from the island.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And Silver just used those same words, some kind of hell, when talking about what one would give up. I mean, what one
Sure.
would choose over this war.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit of daylight between those two.
It might be. Interesting. Oh, dear.
But also, in which direction is the daylight? Like, what I thought was, if Silver thinks that Thomas Hamilton is alive, maybe this is a way for him to allow Flint an out. Like, Flint's already, somewhat being sidelined.
Right.
What if Silver's saying, dear friend, the love of your life might still be alive. Let me help you find that way to, like, actually, do that thing. Take your oar into the land.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's Silver saying, maybe this is too much for me. I can't make this choice, and I think I might have to, and therefore I can't. This conversation is so fascinating. It could go in a million directions.
I think that this is a conversation that we won't understand until we look back.
Exactly.
After the season.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Flint says that the closer we get, the more there will be contradictions, and then we'll know we're getting somewhere. And Silver said, I have to admit, I can't get that conversation with Billy out of my head.
Out of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. This conversation just leads to a million questions and no answers right now. But I feel like it's the crux of what we will understand, even though we don't understand it yet.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to that. Let's get to that tunnel and that gate. Okay, so now we get to Eleanor's plan, and Max is in on it, obviously, because Max asks her, when you've now gotten everyone so busy preparing, what is it exactly that you're preparing? And she sends that note, and that was the thing, that Flint's reading that note while Billy's like, I've got it covered. I can cover the beach. My people can do this. And Flint's reading that note, and then he says yes to Billy. So who knows what Flint, if he had not he had not been offered this plan B, who knows what potential conflict he would have had with Billy, but that kind of gave him the place where he could say, okay, you delegated on this, I've got this other thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I felt like the two were very connected. I feel like that, I felt like that gave Flint, and that's another question, like, do we think Flint, from the moment he saw that note, he doesn't know the particulars, but was he already inclined to make a deal? It's hard to say. I mean, it is hard to say. He has been receding into the background throughout in the past, since their siege didn't work. He has been allowing himself to recede, I feel like. So maybe he would have let Billy take over anyway, but I feel like the note offered him the idea that there was a new route for him.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so they're in the tunnels, like, I don't know if it's the same gate, but, like, seriously?
I know. Big callback. I know. Yeah. The vein on the other side. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like, I was just like, oh, seriously? We're at the gate of betrayal. Like that.
The gate of betrayal. Yes, basically.
Which already puts us in a mind frame, right? It's just like, we get to that gate and we're like, danger, betrayal.
Exactly.
But so Eleanor says, like, this whole thing about, like, there's going to be a lot of loss and I've just had enough.
Right.
And she says, you need to decide now. I will not undermine my husband's attempt once he's here. But if you decide right now, I will make this deal with you for the cash. Do we believe her?
I think yes. Right now, I believe her. Right now, the motivations that she has for her husband and for her unborn child and to get away and for safety, yes, I believe her.
Yeah, I believe her too. Okay.
And especially after that conversation with Max.
Right, exactly. No, I love the conversation with Max for itself and for what I feel like it healed for me a little bit about them.
Oh, sure.
But I think that was its main purpose, was for us to believe Eleanor right here. So she's describing this whole thing, and Flint has some objections, but basically it's Silver who's like, no way.
Right.
And then it's fascinating. You watch Flint And he's not twitchy. I actually wanted to bring up, he's super twitchy when Silver brings up Thomas Hamilton, as Flint does. People bring up Thomas Hamilton and he gets super twitchy. He's not twitchy here. He's really thinking. Like, I feel like, and I think that this was a beautiful way for them to use the power of the coalition that Eleanor and Flint, the relationship that Eleanor and Flint had. Silver didn't have that with Eleanor. Like, they had moments.
That's true. Yeah, of course.
But this is where Flint's understanding of who Eleanor is really important to the fact that he chose to do this. Yeah, it's just very striking. I mean, we don't know where this is going to go. It's very striking. It's very striking that now Silver's the one who ends up on the other side of a gate by himself.
Yes.
And I love the callback that when Silver says no, Flint says, "Trust me."
Oh, yeah.
I know. So yeah, that's just a giant question mark to be continued.
It is. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we have to see how all this plays out.
So my last thing I wanted to ask you, Liz, I'm a bit haunted by this scene, obviously, from the way I've been talking about it.
Right.
And the thing that's interesting to me, and that I don't feel like I'm able to do myself, is I'm trying to place Flint or James in all of his different times. Like, we have bars, which I feel like is an obvious thing to lead us to when he was ready to give up, when Silver had to convince.
Sure, when he was in the cage.
Exactly. The last time, basically, Flint was going to do something and Silver said, "No, don't do that thing."
Right.
Was when Flint was ready to give in for the sake of everyone, where he was saying, I mean, it was partly his own giving in, but it was partly because he was saying, the thing I always wanted is going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember exactly the words he used, but he was basically lie down and let that thing happen over my body, basically.
Yes.
And we keep talking about, that he's saner than usual, but also receding a bit. Like, it just feels a little bit like...
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Our micromanager, our guy who wouldn't let other people take over, doesn't seem to be here. And
yeah, no, he is truly collaborating with Silver. And I think sometimes we see it bump up against him, and sometimes we see where he wants to... I think we see his instinct to regain full control and authority. But mostly I think that he is trying to offer some of that up.
Right.
So now, I mean, is this, you think, the fullest manifestation of that?
Well, it could go either way, I feel like. I feel like this could be Flint giving up and kind of, sacrificing himself, which, would not be inappropriate for other symbolism he's had throughout the show. So this could be him. I mean, I don't think would have that same sense as in season 3, because there he was, he had lost all hope.
Right. Yeah. And he certainly hasn't here, but I do wonder if he questions his true motives now, especially with bringing Thomas Hamilton back up in this episode. Because he must see how different this is from what he and Thomas fought for. He must see that.
I don't know. Really? I mean, I think I think it's very possible for Flint not to see that. Or you're right. Maybe there's a spark of that. So do we think this is a form of giving up? Or is this an extremely active act? Like, does he understand this is the only way through, so he's being super active and sacrificing himself in an active way, you know what I mean? As opposed to in a passive way? Or, I guess I don't think it's a cop-out. I mean, I think it's a true question to say, is this some new thing that we haven't seen yet? Because I feel like...
Right, which it certainly could be, yes.
We're getting a whole lot of new things we couldn't have imagined.
Yeah. Well, and that's honestly where I find myself, is that I cannot guess what Flint is going to do or how he's going to arc, because he just continues to surprise me in the most beautiful ways.
Absolutely.
But I feel like I cannot guess at that man's mind at all. So while I'm eager and interested to see why he made the decision that he did, I just have no flippant idea, Daphne. I don't know why he did it.
I know, it's totally true. I mean, I guess I just needed to bring up the question because it does, this moment resonates certainly with that cage, but also with other moments. Like, I just feel like this moment. Oh, and did I bring up, there's the one thing where you're looking at his face and the camera doesn't seem to move, but the shadow of one of the bars moves across his face.
Oh,
like a vertical line going across his face was just like, I know, that just gave me chills every time I saw it.
Yes,
I was just like,
almost certainly significant, but I missed it.
Right, it seemed extremely significant because it seemed kind of like, sure, someone could have moved a torch on Eleanor's side that would make the shadow move, but it seemed something that was so dramatically not actually 100% happening in the way, in like the actual physics of that space. And
sounds like an Andrew Dice.
I know. Again, so we're just going to have every episode where we call on Andrew Dice to decipher visual stuff for us.
You help us negotiate this. Yes.
Yes, Andrew, you are in charge of all symbolism beyond our capabilities. Well, yes. I kind of knew that I was going to ask this question and we were going to end up with more questions than we started with.
Sure.
But it's just something I think we should all think about this week. You and I definitely should think about it.
It's important to pose the question.
Yes. And I just feel like Flint could be going in a lot of different ways here. And they could be passive and they could be active and they could be some weird mixture of the two. And I don't know where it's going to be yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm done with the discussion of the episode. Let's get on to our game.
Oh, yeah, our game. Okay.
Ready to guns! Full complement!
All right. So, just to remind everyone, we are actually, I got this wrong last week. So, okay, what we're dealing with right now is the question that we asked about episode 2 of season 4, which is whether Eleanor was going to get away from Nassau to try to go to Philadelphia.
Oh, yes.
Turned out very differently than we expected. She did not get away, but not because of, well, we don't need to bring up pirates right now. Not because of pirates. Just because of delays. Because of the redcoats. First, we should take care of the people that we skipped from our first game.
Yes. Whoops. There's a lot of you. It's easy to make mistakes. So thank you so much for being forgiving and gracious to us.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so the people we skipped last time are Kelly at Glazebrook Girl. What did Kelly...
That's Caliban Kelly, yes. So...
I mean, we can just take care of both of hers now, because she actually gets one for this one, too. So, Kelly, you get 2 things.
So, Caliban Kelly, I was giving her another ship. So, and again, Caliban is from Tempest. So, I gave her the Miranda, which works doubly because of Black Sails, of course.
And breaks our hearts. Thank you, Liz.
And breaks our hearts. You're welcome. And the Prospero.
All right, Kelly, look at you. That's a very special fleet you've got there, Kelly.
It is, quite, yes.
Okay, and also skipped from last time is our friend Jen at Great Chemistry.
Right, that's red-handed Jen. So we're giving her a ship, the Minotaur.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, I like it too.
That one speaks to me in special ways. Okay.
Got a lot of Greek myth on the brain. There's a couple more Greek stuff that comes up in this one. So.
You did that to make me happy, didn't you?
Sure I did. Of course, Daphne. I do everything to make you happy.
Okay, and the next one is at No Shame, which I think is her first one, right?
Yes.
I'm so excited.
And so since No Shame is, of course, from Black Sails, made me think of the Marcus Aurelius book. So I gave her Mad Marcus.
Oh, love it. That's a great pirate name. Okay. Which, yes, she's already Kaishi Flint, I think. Oh, I've forgotten what the first name is, but she has, as her Twitter name, a something Flint.
Perfect.
And next, Scorpion 80 again.
That's right. Scorpion Pierce is now a captain. I feel now. Have we missed her once before too? Because on the spreadsheet it wasn't sure. So I'm going to give her.
Yeah, I think we did.
I feel like we did because once again I feel like the Scorpion made me think Egyptian, and I feel like I've done this before, and I've already given her either an Isis or an Osiris. If I haven't yet, she has a ship named the Isis.
Okay.
And if I have, then you now get the Osiris as well.
Okay.
So either way, you have at least a ship, maybe 2. Let us know which one is correct, please. And our apologies again for the slip up. There was a question mark on the spreadsheet, so I couldn't be sure.
Right. All right. Yeah. So Scorpion Pierce, please tell us. Okay. Next, Katie Bonner.
Yes. Cat of Nine Tails gets a promotion to bosun.
All right, Katie. You and Billy. Or, well, who knows what he is now.
Who knows what Billy is now.
In so many ways.
Billy. King, I don't know. Yep.
All right. At Here Be Megan.
Who is Hawkeye to Gallant, also gets a promotion to bosun. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Megan. Okay. At K8 Met.
Yes. Okay. And this is another one who, I guess she does some knitting. So this is another Greek name, Ariadne Skitter.
Oh, love.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Liz, you are making me happy, whether that was in your intention or not. All right. At Acorn Carla.
Yes, the Portuguese man of war now gets a promotion to quartermaster. Congratulations.
Oh, you know what, Carla? You were always meant to be a quartermaster. I think
you'd be very good
leader
at it. Of men. Yes.
Yep. All right. At Charlie 1877.
That's Chum Bucket Charlie, who gets a new ship, the Brittle Star.
Oh, I like that name.
Me too.
At Leanie CK.
Yay, Leanie. I wanted to give her a good, strong lady name. She's Sharpshooting Sally.
Oh, that's great, Leanie. That's awesome. At M the Beastie.
That's Cassandra McKillen, who gets a promotion to bosun. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Only the second time playing the game. Well done.
All right. At Bubicus.
Our man Beardicus is now a bosun. Congratulations, friend.
Oh, yeah. Jeff, you need to keep playing because I really want you to have a ship. Okay. At Clower Cottage.
That's
you know I know
Clark,
your name.
Captain Quick Click Clark, who gets a new ship, the Santa Ana.
Terrific. Okay. At Thomas Sarah C.
Who is Wood-Eye Wilkins, promotion to bosun.
Congratulations. Virtual whistle for you.
Uh-huh.
At Cassie.
Yeah, I went with Casey, so we'll see. I say
That's
Killer
right.
Casey Mordew.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
At Usagi Baker.
Red Tide Rider is now a bosun. Congratulations on your promotion, ma'am.
Congratulations. At Emily Emerly.
Stormy Morley, who I got in a little trouble on Twitter for giving her the willing mind last week. Apparently that's a damaged ship, so my apologies.
No, but she was happy with it.
She was happy with it?
Yes, she was pleased.
If she's happy, then fantastic. In that case, let's go ahead and give her another one because we know that he did come home with the Queen Anne's Revenge. I hate to have lost it from Teach, so let's give it to Stormy Morley. I feel better about that than letting Woods Rogers have it, don't you?
I feel much better about that. I'm really
Indeed.
looking. Do we think I'll make it to a point in this season where a mention of Teach won't just tear me to pieces?
I don't.
No, it's not going to happen. Just so all of you all know, all of you are suffering. I know sometimes we do that with our Twitter account by joking about clocks and such, but just know I'm right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At Ithaca.
Dagger-Eyed Dame is now made captain. You get your first ship, the Cutlass. Congratulations.
Oh, I'm so pleased. And she definitely will know all about that ship. More than any of us, probably. Tamara Peterson.
Yes. Tam Peterson. Okay. Anne-Marie Marksman.
Oh, nice. Oh, pirate name. Excellent.
It is a good pirate name. Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, and last but not least, Silver Sue.
Silver Sue O'Shandy, our good captain with so many ships, now has the Tahitian Pearl.
Oh, sweet. All right. Well, next week we will still have a prediction game, but we have actually decided that predictions are way too hard for this season.
And also there are a million pirate names, and holy smokes, guys, this is stretching my creativity here.
We're making Liz work super hard. But also to be honest, I had a really hard time coming up with a good question for this one. I feel like things ended in this episode so open-ended that it was really hard for me to come up with a coherent question.
Sure.
So we're going to go back to thesis statements. So
I like that. It works so well for this show.
Right.
And it's a good challenge for our listeners, too.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have you send us thesis statements, and we'll announce it on Twitter, the timing of everything, come up with the new instructions. We will have you do a thesis statement for episode 5, which we will reward you for when we cover episode 6.
Perfect.
So that's how it's going to go. Sorry to be confusing. We love you all, and we enjoy these games, but I can't even come up with questions anymore. They've confused me too much.
Yeah, it's so hard. That's all right. I do like the thesis statement game.
Yes, that'll be fun. See, then you also get to hear me and Liz hash it out.
Which is always fun.
All right. Well, that's it for this week, though. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening. Until next week, from Common Room Radio, I'm Liz Stevens.
And I'm Daphne Olive.
Fathoms Deep is a Common Room Radio production. For more information and access to other programs, please visit us at commonroomradio.com. To show your support, pledges of as little as $1 a month can be made to patreon.com/commonroomradio. Join the conversation by using the hashtag #Fathoms_Deep and follow us on Twitter at BlackSalesCast. We ask that you keep your tweets respectful and positive, and please avoid spoilers. If you have more to say, we want to hear it in all its spoiler glory. Email us at podcast@commonroomradio.com with Fathoms Deep in the subject line. Thanks for listening.